everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Paola and today I have a very special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your book?
Hi, my name is Francesca Padilla, or Franny, a lot of people say. I have a book called What's Coming to Me out August 2nd with Soho Teen, which is an imprint of Soho Press. What's Coming to Me is I like to describe it as a teen workplace dramedy because
Ooh.
it's about a girl who works at an ice cream stand and how much she hates it, and that she mainly because her boss is very sexist and creepy and kind of abusive, and she finds out that he is doing some shady stuff, might be hiding money in the ice cream stand, and uses it as perhaps a way to get out of her life circumstances. So the book is kind of equally about her life circumstances and also how she's trying to get out of it with this, like, accessing this world of crime in her small town.
Heisty. It's like a small town heist. I love it.
Yeah. Thank you. I actually have tried not to use that word because I feel like people expect very specific things when they hear the word heist. We could get into that later though.
So What's Coming to Me is a book that's very angry and it's about grief and trauma, but at the same time, there's a lot of joy and hope in it. So what was challenging about balancing those themes?
Well, first of all, I love this question and all of the questions, but that actually ties into what I just said about the feedback that and the expectations that readers have. So that's actually a little bit challenging to me. Well, I'll start with the writing of it. So naturally balancing the darkness and the light is quite easy to me because I joke around a lot. I'm like one of those people who jokes instead of expresses sadness outwardly. And so like some of the like funny moments really just came naturally, or like the moments of lightness. But I did make an intentional decision to add a hefty amount of joy to the end of the book and resolve it in a way that felt like I want to give these characters what I feel they deserve, you know, what's coming to them. So not to spoil the book, but what was challenging for me in that is, am I giving enough conflict to this story? Am I wrapping it up too neatly? You know, I don't think I did. I guess to wrap up my answering of the question is balancing the realism of the conflict with what I felt the characters deserved with storytelling, like actual storytelling and what makes sense as for the story. Like all of those things were challenging.
I love that. And I think those emotions are so perfectly well balanced that it's very rewarding to read. What was rewarding about writing it?
I guess just coming up with an answer to the quandary that Minerva and Cece found themselves in, like figuring out how they were going to get back at Minerva's boss while not giving in to the really dark way that they were considering getting money.
Yeah.
You know, like making all that stuff make sense and like coming up, I think with some of the surprises, the twists at the very, very end, that was the most rewarding. Yeah, I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah, no, it's fine because it's like equal parts non-revealing, but also a wholesome answer. So I'm here for it.
Oh, thank you. Love a wholesome answer.
So if you found the money that Min is looking for, what would you do with it?
So it really depends on how much money there is. So I would say if it was like in the tens of thousands, I would do two things. I would save some of it because I'm a boring adult. And actually, as a 17-year-old, I would have saved some of it for sure. Because I grew up very poor and I had like a saving mentality. My brother did not. So it doesn't mean that just because you grow up poor, you have to have that mentality. It's just my experience. But I would save a portion of it, and then I would buy myself like a new wardrobe And then I would go on a trip.
Yes, traveling sounds so good, especially after being cooped up so many years.
That years plural just got me in the
Yeah.
heart. Like, yes, it's been multiple years.
So what's something you wish you could say to Min if she suddenly became real?
I would just validate her feelings
Mm.
because that was something that she was really lacking. And some of it was self-imposed. You know, she was distancing herself from other people, but some of it was not. Like the adults in her life genuinely were not there for her. That's what she needs. Like she needs an adult to be like, you're a child and you're okay and it's not your fault. And I guess I would say not you're a child, but like it's not your fault. Like it's just not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
Yeah. I love that. What's been so eye-opening, I guess, in reading YA as an adult, it's how little adults pay attention to teens and how just realistic that is. Like that is the most relatable aspect of any YA novel ever. So I love that you would say that to her. And what do you think she would say to you?
I think that she'd want to ask me about how I got out of my circumstances and oh, can you really do it? Like you really left where you grew up, you really got out of there, you did it on your own. Like I think she'd want to know she'd want to ask questions about that. I feel like she'd have something to say about my outfit. That's
I love that. You've been the second author to be like, she'd be like, okay, like fine, I guess.
Yeah.
I do love that you think that she would ask questions about your circumstance and how you got out of it. That's another really powerful thing that YA books can have, like adults that make it out of their circumstances. Like I'm thinking, for some reason, I'm thinking Euphoria and that guy who is Rue's like unofficial sponsor. I'm thinking of him and being like, yeah, those people matter a lot too, and teens need that. Teens need that.
So yeah, I think that like in summary, like she would want information out of me. She wouldn't just be like telling me something. She'd want information like that she can use in her own life. Like my deal with thinking about my potential audience of teens, I agree that it's easy to be like, oh, it gets better, it's this and that. Like it's easy to say something to teenagers that makes them be like, okay, because you know they hear whack shit all the time. But but two things that I like to focus on is like remembering that they're children and that they need love like any other child and that maybe they have different ways of wanting that or showing that they want or need that than like a small child would.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I was thinking too, like they don't like to be talked at. I just know that teens don't like to be talked at. They like when you're just like a person around them and not an adult. Talking to
exactly. Yeah, definitely. So this next one is a game. It's a fill in the blanks game. So the first book I ever loved was
Addie Runs Away. It's a really random picture book that I stole from my school library.
Nice.
Elementary school library.
The first book I bought with my own money was
Archie Comics.
Sweet. My first book idea was
it was called Wishing Weed. I wrote the whole novel when I was in high school, and it was about a girl who was rich. So it was a very wish fulfillment book, and this is a long blank I'm filling in. And it was her dad. She was rich. Her dad was a celebrity, but she didn't fit in with like all the rich people in their life. And they moved from LA to like a small Northern California town. And she joins band, and it's like it was coming of age. It's a coming of age. So like I guess that's my jam is like coming of age.
Lovely.
Stuff. But it's so corny. But it was like very much like I wish I had a famous dad. I wish that I lived in Northern California.
Don't we all wish we were nepotism babies?
That's true. And it goes back to I think it was the first or second question of like what was
rewarding about
What
it?
was rewarding, because the wish fulfillment, it's like there's always, I guess, with things that I feel are successful, whether it's like published or not, it's like, what would I like to see happen in this situation? Like that's what that was that first book.
The song that reminds me the most of my book is
Look What You Made Me Do by Taylor Swift.
Ooh, that's an awesome song. If you were a book, what section of the bookstore would you live in?
So the section that I go to in my life is like fiction and literature first, and then YA. But like, I thought it was like, which question or which section represents you the best? In which case that would be like, if it's one of those Barnes and Nobles that sells records, like probably that section.
Ooh, that's another good way to interpret the question. I love that. And finally, what do you hope readers take away from What's Coming to Me?
Because anger is such a big part of the book, I would focus on that. I want them to learn that anger can look different ways and it can come from different places. Mm-hmm. Like, everybody thought Minerva, or not everybody, but in Minerva's point of view, everyone thinks that she's like, you know, a space cadet, like a fuck up, this or that. And it's like, she was grieving, you know?
Yeah.
Like she had a chip on her shoulder and people kept pointing it out, but she was grieving. And that's what the anger meant, that she was grieving. And I think that that's what I would want people to come away with, is like the different faces of anger, how people experience anger differently. And the other thing that I would mention too is, because it's just something that's come up a couple times, is like the diversity in the book is very intentional to me, because it reflects how I grew up. Like, I didn't grow up in a town like Nautilus, but I grew up in a town in Brooklyn where there were people from all over. Being Latina in this country, it doesn't look like necessarily how like white audiences assume. Mm-hmm. Like there's some of us who are very well aware of our culture and where we came from and like speak the language perfectly, and then there's some of us who don't, and then who don't know the language at all, and then there's lots of us in between. And so seeing people so in this book, there's two characters who are pretty Americanized, Minerva and Cece, and then there's Jamira, who's less Americanized. She speaks Spanish. I guess we come in all different colors. We come in all different, with different capabilities, different experiences. And I would say like that's part of the greater story of being Latina in the United States.
I love that. That's a great way to approach the diaspora experience. So thank you so much for joining me today. It means the world to me. Like, I remember when your cover came out and I read the synopsis and I was like, this book sounds incredible. I need it in my life. So thank you so much for letting me read it early as well. People at home, don't forget to check out the description below for buy links for What's Coming to Me by the one and only Francesca Padilla. So yeah, once again, thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Francesca, for doing this with me. And we'll see you in another one. Bye.
It means the world to me too.
Thank you.